Hello and good evening to all of you. Am I audible? Okay, so let us try to solve some more questions with respect to the mains that is going to come up. So, in this, we have chosen a question related to space science and technology. So, this question says that elaborate the achievement of India in the field of space science and technology, and how space science and technology has helped India in, or it has how it has helped in development of India. So, hello Aryan. Okay, so how do we how do you think we can write this question? So, what are the different parts that we need to address in this? Hello, Neha. Hello. Okay, so are you able to understand the question? So, let us just see how we can attempt such type of questions. So, this question is about elaborate the achievement of India in the field of space science and technology. So, it is not a generic question, that it is not about science and technology. So, sometimes in the heat of the exam or in the heat of the moment, you might miss this term. And you might think that this is a general question of achievement of India in science and technology. So you should take a note that this is a specific question, that is, it is asking about achievements in space science and technology, and not a general type of a question, not a general question on overall development of science and technology. And then it is asking in the second part how space science and technology has helped in development of India. So it is asking basically the utility of whatever work that ISRO has done till now in different sectors. So how are we going to write this question? So let us first focus on the structure of the question, and then we'll look at the answer. So hello all. So Aryan, Neha, Vaishnavi, hello all. Okay, we'll first, as I've always said, that in answer writing, the content content comes later, but what is most important is the structure, that whether you are able to structure your answer properly or not. If you structure your answer properly, half the job is done, and through that structure only an examiner gets the idea that whether you have understood the demand of the question or not. So when we say that you should focus on structure, understanding the structure, it means basically that are you able to mold your knowledge according to the demand of the question. You might know a lot of things, but what is required is that you have to write the things that has been asked in the question, and not generally what you know. So that is why the structure is very important, because it is helping you to get closer to the demand of the question. So that is why we spend some time in to elaborate the question, elaborate the structure of the question. So let us see what are the different parts to this question. So this question definitely has an intro. Every answer will have intro, body, and a conclusion. Now let us say in your body, what are the different subheadings that you are going to write according to this question? What are the different subheadings that you need to write? Yes, what should come after introduction? See, I see many students online. So can anybody help me out that what should be the another subheading? We'll look at what we have to write inside, but we are just first focusing on the structure, the subheading. So if your answer has to be written in, let us say, 250 words here, 2.5 pages or around 3 pages, what are the important subheadings that you have to write that you shouldn't miss? These subheadings makes the answer modular in nature. Modular means that if the examiner is seeing this subheading, he knows that what he is going to read here. So it makes the task of the examiner easier also. That is also the benefit of writing a good structure. So if you're making the task of an examiner easier, he or she will tend to award you more. So this exam is about clinical finish. This exam is about, you have to get half marks extra. So let me just give you a perspective of this exam. See, this mains will be of 1750 marks, and anybody Karthik, the subheading that you're saying that it should be about new space policy, should it be about new space policy? Okay, what we'll do after this question, we'll make a question on space policy itself, and then we'll see what we can write in new space policy, or what type of, yes, new space policy is in news, so what type of question can be asked, that also we'll see. Let us first do this question, then we'll look at the new space policy itself. But before that, what we are trying to understand the importance of every mark in your mains. So if your mains is of 1750 marks, so there are 4 GS, that is of 1000 marks, 4 GS of 1000 marks, then your essay is of 250 marks, and your optional is of 500 marks. Everybody who is a sincere student, who reads well, who is studying for, let us say, 7 to 8 hours a day, and is thorough with the preparation, can score in the range of 700 to 750. But this marks is not going to help you get selected. This marks might just help you to just clear the cutoff, but if you want to really excel in this exam, then your target should be around 850 plus marks in your mains. And targeting this requires you to understand that there are 4 GS paper, and in each GS paper there are 20 questions, so there are 80 questions in your GS paper, and then for in your optionals you have 40 more questions. So in total you have 120 questions. And do you realize that if you are able to score, let us say, 0.5 marks more, 0.75 marks more, then you can actually jump from here to here. So that is the importance of every marks that you score in your this mains. So how you can score more is you can score more by focusing on the structure, yes, by value addition. So these are some things where you have to focus. Now coming to this part, what is the subheading that we have to write here? Let us say here the subheading should be achievements, achievement of India. The subheading is as simple as you have to just pick up the keywords of the question itself, and you can make that as the subheading. Achievement of India in space, science and technology. And you have to elaborate on this part. You have to justify this part by writing couple of points. So you have to elaborate this part. Now next part is how space science and technology has helped in development of India. So this part here you have to mention that how this just space science and tech and development of India. This is This could be your another subheading. Let me use an eraser. What should come next? So you have addressed the two parts of the question. We'll look at inside that what you can write inside, but what should come next? What should you be writing here? Any other subheading that is required at this point of time? So you have addressed this part of the question, and you have, let us say, addressed this part of the question. You have you have made two subheadings, and you are justifying this, or you are mentioning also how it is helping in development. We look at the specific points. What should you be writing next? What should be the next subheading about? Basically, what is the another dimension that you have to mention in this question? Yes, would anybody like to try? Yes, Neha, Dagar, Karthik. What should come after these two parts? Recent development in space by ISRO. Recent development, in fact, you can use it here itself to justify this part. This question is about achievement of ISRO. This question is about what India has done well in space science and technology. Do you think everything is good or everything is working very well in India's space program? Or are we still not or are we still lagging behind? Have we been able to successfully send a manned mission? USA or NASA had sent manned mission way back in 1969 itself, and it has been 5 or 6 decades from then that India has not still attempted a manned mission. Or India, the contribution by government to ISRO is very minimal. So you have to mention what here, that yes, everything that ISRO is doing might be good, but there are some still challenging areas which India needs to address, or which the government needs to address, or overall the space sector needs to address. So here basically you have to mention the some of the challenges with respect to the space sector itself. So you have to mention some of the challenges with respect to space sector, and then you can go for writing a conclusion. Is the structure clear to all of you, that these are the different parts of the question that you need to write? These are the different parts of the question that you need to write. Let us come back to introduction. What can you write in introduction? What can you write in introduction itself? Elaborate the achievement of India in the field of space science and technology. How space science and technology has helped in development of India. What can you write as an introduction? So in such type of question where you have to in a way chart out that what has been the achievement, so you can go with a historical context, or when ISRO was found. So you can mention the date that ISRO was found during this year, let us say 1969, or you can mention the name of the founding fathers of space science and technology. So who is referred as the founding father of space science and technology of India? Have you watched that movie Rocketry of R. Madhavan? Yes, Karthik watched that movie. rocketry. So, who is considered as the father of India's space program? No? So, you can use his name. So, Vikram Sarabhai is the founder. Yes, Vikram Sarabhai is the father of India's space science and technology program. So you can mention that India started its mission, or India sent the first satellite, the Aryabhatta satellite, in 1975, and now India is able to send some of the heaviest satellite which could be possible. So India has traveled a long distance with respect to development of space science and technology. Yes, Vikas Engine. So I guess you have seen that movie then. So Dr. Nambi Narayan Nambi Narayan was a student or a protege of Vikram Sarabhai. So Nambi Narayan was considered to be an expert in liquid engines. So when he developed the first liquid engine, so he named the liquid engine in honor of Vikram Sarabhai. So he combined VIK and S, VIK and S. So that became the Vikas engine. So okay, good that you know this. So you can use such type of an introduction, or you can even use a very simple introduction which could define what do you understand by space science and technology. So you can go by a definitional type of introduction, you can go by a historical type of introduction, or you can use some context based introduction. Context based or news based. Yesterday there was a news, a day before yesterday also. Yesterday there was a news. So what is the news that you can use to write or start this answer? What is the news? Yes, Karthik. Is Chandrayaan 3 in news? So you can use the Chandrayaan 3 itself, that India India is sending Chandrayaan 3, a repeat mission of Chandrayaan 2, and has successfully reached the orbit. So India is one of the few countries which is able to reach to the or to moon, and it would be the unique country to reach to the far side of moon. So India started very humbly in space science and technology when it started ISRO, but now it is sending some of the most complicated missions. So that can also be your introduction. So introduction, you can go historical introduction, you can go by writing a definitional type of introduction, or you can use a news or a context also to write an introduction. Getting this? So let us now see that how you can write. Okay, just a second. Okay, got the idea. Okay, so now you have written down introduction. Now let us see what you can write here. What you can write here, achievements. So here you have to write achievements. Achievements of India, or basically achievements of ISRO, because in India the private sector is still not at that stage, or at that level as is the case in USA. So achievements of ISRO. What can you mention the achievements of ISRO right from the start? So ISRO was formed in 1969. From then we have sent so many types of missions. But the challenge here is that how do you write the achievements of ISRO in a concise manner and not missing out some of the important achievements of ISRO or India's achievement in space science and technology. Okay, very good. So you can mention about, can I use a term launch vehicle? Launch vehicle. India started with SLV, satellite launch vehicle, in 1970s. Then it increased the capacity and it went for ASLV. Then it started PSLV, and in PSLV for the first time we used liquid engine. So the contribution of Dr. Nambi Narayan, as you would have seen in the movie, was that he designed the liquid engine, the Vikas engine. Then we came up with GSLV, and GSLV is the heaviest launch vehicle that India has. And what is the uniqueness of GSLV? That it uses cryogenic engine. Good, Karthik. And along with that, what you can see parallelly, India has developed what you can write it as parallel, SSLV, small satellite launch vehicle. And India is also working to develop what is called as reusable launch vehicle technology demonstrator. Heard about RLVTD? It was in news some time back. RLVTD, India tested one of the component of the RLVTD autonomous landing experiment was done successfully for RLV. So just like Falcon is of SpaceX, a private company of USA. It is of Elon Musk. So they have a lot of parts of the rocket which is reusable. So India also wants that India should have a reusable launch vehicle. When you say reusable launch vehicle, it will reduce our cost of space travel. So even common people, not only astronauts, but even common people can travel. So it will reduce the cost of space travel. So with respect to launch vehicles, these have been the development. Okay, good, Karthik. So can I say, or can we say, some of the most marquee missions or some of the most significant missions ISRO has been able to send? Marquee missions. So marquee missions like your Mangalyaan. We were able to send Mangalyaan. We have been successful, or the Gaganyaan you can write as a future program, or we are even planning to have manned mission. Gaganyaan, Chandrayaan, in Chandrayaan 1 and Chandrayaan 2, and we have sent Chandrayaan 3. Chandrayaan 3 has reached the lunar orbit. So you can mention these things also. If with respect to Mangalyaan, you can mention that India was the first country to reach Mars in first attempt. That itself is quite a feat for a country like India. Yes, what else, Karthik? What else you can write here? Okay, Navik, good. Okay, so you can mention, so good, Karthik. So you can mention about, we have our own navigation system. So we have Navik. Can you write about satellites? We can send some of the heaviest satellites now. GSAT is the heaviest. If we started with what Aryabhatta, and we are able to send some of the heaviest satellites now. Yes, what else can you write as an achievement? Oh, yes, so that itself is quite an achievement, that ISRO is known as a frugal agency, or we are a hub of frugal innovation, that we are able to send missions at a very low cost. If you look at the cost of Mangalyaan, so we were not only the first, but it is considered to be one of the cheapest mission. In fact, a Hollywood movie like your Interstellar was costly than even the Mangalyaan actual mission. So India is a hub of frugal innovation. What else? What else can you mention here? So you have mentioned about satellites, you have mentioned about launch vehicle. You can also mention what are we planning for. We are planning to send Gaganyaan. We are planning to have our own space station. No, and you can also elaborate on this part, that we have developed the cryogenic. Every part of this is indigenously developed. So we have been, pioneers in developing cryogenic with respect to your space science and technology. Launch satellite at low cost, yes. So this we have already covered. So these are your achievements that you can mention with respect to ISRO, with respect to space science and technology. So you have written an intro, you have written achievements. Let us see what you can write for development, that how space science and technology is helping in development. So space science and technology in development. What you can write in this part? See, I'm using short forms. You shouldn't be using short forms. So it is just because of the pen tab that I'm using, so it sometimes becomes rigorous. Yes, what can you write in this part? How space science and technology has helped in the development of our country or development of India? How you should approach this part? Weather forecasting, okay, good, Karthik. Which sector are you talking about? So, how, for security purposes? Yes, good, good, good. See what you can do, that it is better to go for a sectoral approach. When you say that how it is going to develop India, or how it has helped in development of India, then why not focus on different sectors? Let us say agriculture. Has ISRO or whatever technology it has developed, has it helped the agriculture sector or not? So what you can do is go for a sectoral approach. Has it helped agriculture? What other sector you want to talk about? Let us say you want to talk about security. But in development aspect, yes, you can mention security also. How, or any other sector that you want to focus, that where space science and technology has helped? Jai Hind, Samiksha. Yes, so where else do you think space science and, let us first focus on the sectors where space science and technology has helped, then we can look into specific points. Has it helped in, let us say, urban development, rural development? Okay, good. Fishing sector. So can you write, let us say, agriculture? Okay, fishing you can put separately. Urban development, rural development. Okay, mineral finding. Yes, good. So mineral finding, fishing. So now you're getting the ideas. So now what you have to do is basically elaborate these points, or you should be writing some examples here. So let us say in agriculture, how it has helped in agriculture sector. How do you think ISRO has contributed in agriculture? You should also focus on other sectors such as health. How it has helped in the health sector, how it has helped in education sector. So if you are able to generate one or two points in all these sectors, then you can justify this part. How do you think ISRO has helped in agriculture? Yes, anybody? So you Karthik, you mentioned weather forecasting. So weather forecasting, is it benefiting the farmers or not? No. Weather forecasting is actually helping the farmers. We can also go for crop yield estimation. Crop yield estimation. So using satellites, we can estimate what could be the yield of the crops, and based on that, we can, if there is loss in yield, we can go for insurance also. So for availing insurance, we can use your these satellite based images. No? And recently there is a scheme of government of India where government is trying to improve the land title issues. One scheme government has started. Yes, what is that scheme? How about Swamitva scheme? So we'll try to use GPS coordinates, to know the exact position of the land for any individual farmer. So if land titling issues are resolved, it can resolve many of the issues in agriculture. Okay, let us look at health. How do you think ISRO has contributed in improving health? So during COVID time, you would have come across this. What do you think is telemedicine? Telemedicine. So it is like availing the doctors online, or availing health facilities online. So for that, ISRO is helping out during COVID, after COVID. So it is helping out to build applications. It is helping out to develop technologies which can enable this telemedicine. Let us say in education, how it is helping out in education. So it is creating what new channels for knowledge to be spread out. Or during COVID times, for competitive exam preparation, government has even had started even what some channels which were teaching children. Is it possible to write about telemanas? What is telemanas, Karthik? So in education, so we use what INSAT, GSAT, starting new channels to spread education. So all these points you can mention. So starting dedicated channels for competitive exams, that also you can mention. Urban development, what you can mention, that it in planning stage it is required, during execution stage it is required. It can help in reducing congestion, it can help in traffic congestion, it can help in reducing the uh, urban sprawl, or it can help in tackling the issues which persist in the slums. So you can use it in urban development. Rural development and agriculture are quite interlinked, so you can use those arguments here. Again, with respect to industries, it can help in finding out newer areas of mineral extraction or mineral prospecting. So you can use these arguments. So in this way, space science and technology has helped in development of India. And in a broader sense, you can also say that because of the works of ISRO, it has attracted the best minds of India, or it is motivating the youth, or youth are getting inspired by the works of ISRO. And more youth, and especially women, you would have heard this issue that women participation in STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, is quite low. But because of the works done by ISRO, even among women, there is an increased interest in what? In space science and technology. In fact, you would have taken a note that the Mangalyaan mission, it was spearheaded by a women team only. So it is attracting more and more women. That itself is an achievement. So young students, they are interested in going to ISRO, studying about space science and technology, or motivating them to become astronauts in future, or pursuing space science and technology as a subject of graduation. That itself is an achievement. So you can use these arguments to write this part. Now coming to the next part that you have to write is challenges. What can you write in challenges here? What are the challenges? So here you have seen the past achievements of ISRO. Here you have also seen that ISRO has helped the country in many ways. Yes, in limited ways, but in many areas it has helped. But everything is not merry with respect to the space science and technology of India. So there are concerns, there are challenges in our space science and technology sector. So what do you think are the challenges or concerns of space science and technology? Yes, very good. Lack of fund is itself a challenge. If you put a statistics here, so government of India spends only 0.65% on R&D, 0.65% of GDP on R&D. Sorry, GDP on R&D. The global thumb rule says that a country should be spending around 2% on R&D. In fact, Korea or USA, they spend around 5 to 6% of GDP on R&D, and that is why, because we are not devolving more and more funds, so we are not having facilities as is desired. So yes, Karthik, valid point, that the best of the minds, if you do not create an ecosystem where they can express themselves, where they can realize their potential, then eventually the best of the minds, they will drain out, or they will move to the countries where they get opportunities. So have we been able to create the opportunities for the best of our minds? So because of the lack of funds, lack of infrastructure, we are losing out some of the best of the minds also. That itself is a very, very big concern. Anything else, Karthik? So come up with some points with respect to what is the limitation of our space science and technology program. Any other challenge that comes to your mind in space? What about the role of private sector in space? Role of private sector in space. So if you look at USA, there are giant private companies which are spearheading the space program. So in USA, SpaceX is a very big giant. Then Jeff Bezos, what is his company's name? Blue Origin, or there is this Virgin Galactic also. So there are such big giant space companies in India. The problem is that the private sector has a very limited role. So the government is having a lot of control. Yes, true, Karthik. So government is trying to open up, and the private sectors are coming up. They are mushrooming, but still they are at a very, very rudimentary stage compared to the counterparts in USA. So the role of private sector is very, very limited as of now, but situations are changing, that we'll see. So private sector participation is less, so that is also an argument that you can put. Yes, what else can you put as an argument with respect to challenges? That, see, some of the Brahmastra type of points, challenges that you can always mention, that we do not have good infrastructure even for training astronauts. Let us say for Gaganyaan mission, we do not have astronaut training facilities, so we had to send astronauts to Russia, so we are training them there. We do not have training facility. We need to have a global navigation system, then only we can send missions, or more deeper missions. But we do not have a global navigation system, rather we have a regional navigation system itself. The launch vehicles that we have, they are mostly expendable. Launch vehicles are expendable. It means most of the expensive part of the launch vehicles, they get lost in the ocean, or they become debris. So we are not able to reuse them, we are not able to refly them. So overall the cost we are not able to reduce. So that itself is a problem or a challenge. Next, so these would be some of the see, challenges part has not been exclusively asked in the question. So what you can do, you can write this dimension in as brief manner as possible. So the objective here of writing challenges is to tell the examiner that you understand this question in a holistic manner, and you know the achievements also, but you know some of the challenges also. Nothing can be perfect or picture perfect. If ISRO is able to do so many things, there are some things which where ISRO is finding itself in difficulty. So we are trying to write that, and we are trying to overcome that in your conclusion. So your conclusion could be future oriented, or you can overturn some of the concerns, or you can say that government has already come up with the new space policy, so it is encouraging the private players, and that is a good step that you can mention. Or you can mention some of the examples of the private sector companies itself that are coming up, or lack of fund is there. But if private sector starts performing well, then private sector themselves can provide a lot of fun. And next achievement that you can mention is that youth are getting attracted, so that also you can mention. For conclusion, so Karthik, so you're saying for conclusion we'll tell about new space policy 2023 and National Research Foundation. Yes, so that can be a good way to conclude. So in such type of questions, government schemes or recent government programs can also be used as a conclusion. So that would be considered as a good conclusion. So are you able to understand the flow of the question, the demand of the question? Okay, so since Karthik talked about new space policy, let us see what type of question UPSC can design on new space policy. So UPSC might not ask a question on what do you understand by new space policy. So UPSC could ask a question like what is privatization in space, or in this manner, is privatization in space sector desirable? Is privatization in space sector desirable? Comment. And this could be a 10 marker question. This question is linked to the space policy, but it is more in a way analytical than simply a question on space policy. So how do you think you can write this question? Yes, how do you think you can write this question? Yes. How we can write this question? What can be an introduction here? Let us first look at the structure, then we can look at the specific points. What will be the next subheading? What will you make the next subheading? Is privatization in the space sector desirable? Comment. That is the question. Yes, what can you write here? Yes, Karthik, give it a try. Private sector performance. Is this question in a debate format? So what do you have to do is basically write a debate. Is privatization in space sector desirable? So yes. Okay, so so Gaurav says that we can mention about privatization. Okay, so so you basically want to say that what do you understand by privatization? That part you can go, that part you can write in brief. Let us say you want to explain what is privatization. That is also okay. That is okay. So you just mention what is privatization. That works well. Okay, got it. Let us say you want to write what is privatization itself. So you're not assuming that examiner knows. That is the way ahead. That is the way to go. Then what you have to write? Yes, so you're getting the idea, Gaurav. You have to basically write that what will be the advantages of privatization and what are the concerns of privatization. So here you can not use the word pros and cons, but rather use the keywords given in the question itself. So is privatization in space sector desirable? So just mention privatization is desirable. Privatization in space sector is privatization in space sector is desirable. So this part, you this can be your subheading, and make this your subheading, and you have to give strong arguments for this part. So you have to give some arguments, let us say 5 to 6 strong arguments for this part. But next part you have to mention that there are concerns or challenges of privatization that needs to be addressed. So you have to mention the concerns or challenges of privatization, particularly in the space sector. So how is it going to affect or impact, that you have to mention. And then you have to go for a conclusion. And in the conclusion you have to somewhat take a stand that whether we should go for privatization or not. Okay, so now let us look at the answer, what you have to write inside. Is the structure clear to everybody? A simple structure only. Is the structure clear to all of you? There is some lag, so there is always some lag in YouTube live videos. So come, let us look at intro. What can you write as an introduction here? What will be an intro? What can be an introduction here? Yes, Karthik, Gaurav, what can be an introduction here? So a simple introduction could be like beginning with a news item or giving the context that government of India has recently come up with new space policy, which the objective of which is to encourage the private sector participation in space sector. So you can use a news item itself, or you can use a context like in USA the private sector participation is quite huge. So in that context government has come up with a program or a policy to increase private sector participation. Or you can, in the introduction itself, you can mention about privatization in space sector, or you can give some of the Indian examples like the Skyroot is a private space startup which has successfully tested the a private cryogenic engine. So it is in a way a start to open up the private to open up the space sector itself. So you can use some of the current affairs to write your introduction. Okay, yes, Gaurav. So you can use some of the current affairs to write your introduction. Now let us say if you haven't began with writing a definition of privatization, here you can mention what do you understand by privatization in very short manner. So what can you write for privatization? What do you think is privatization? Privatization, what do you mean by privatization? So what do you think is privatization? It is not privatization of a government company. It is about privatization of a sector. So the in India there has been some sectors which have been under government control for very long. Some sectors like atomic energy, sectors like your space, space sectors, there would be other sectors like telecom for very long was under government control. So what we are seeing is basically we are even insurance was for very long under government control. So government is trying to open up, or it is encouraging participation of private companies in new sectors or in erstwhile government controlled sectors. So you can write what is privatization in your own words. So you basically have to explain or define what do you understand by privatization if you haven't began your introduction by a definition of privatization. So this part you can add. Now coming to this part, you have addressed this part, you have addressed introduction. Now privatization in the space sector is desirable. So you are trying to justify this part. What are the arguments that you are going to write for this part? What is the logic for going for privatization? Why India should go for privatization? Yes, anybody? Or basically the benefits of privatization. Yes, what are the benefits of privatization in space sector? क्या बेनिफिट होगा प्राइवेटाइज करने से? क्यों कर रही है अगर गवर्नमेंट, या वाई गवर्नमेंट इज ट्राइंग टू ब्रिंग अप और encourage प्राइवेट सेक्टर्स in the space sector? Yes, Karthik, Gaurav. So the first reason is basically why government goes for privatization, because government funding is itself limited. Government cannot fund most of the projects of ISRO. What is needed, that private sector has should have the wherewithal to fund some of the missions of ISRO. So government funding is limited. So to complement that or to augment that, we need private sector participation. Okay, yes, very good, Karthik. So private sector are very much technology oriented. So they are very competitive. They are technology oriented. They would encourage participation of professional managers. So they would bring in more competitiveness in the space sector itself. They would try to reduce the cost. So in fact in USA you would have seen that when Elon Musk came, so his basic fight or objective in space technology is that space travel should be made cheaper. Space travel should be made cheaper, and if you have to make it cheaper, it means that you have to make the launch vehicles cheaper. To make the launch vehicle cheaper, you basically have to refly them again and again. To refly them again and again, it means you have to make it reusable. So the private sector would bring paradigm shift in how the space sector has been working till now. Yes, private sector is highly efficient. Good, Gaurav. when private, so Gaurav is saying when private sector gets involved, important sectors to contribute in nation building and generating jobs. So yes, nation building is a very broad term. Let us first discuss or bring specific points. Generating jobs would be a good point, but here you should mention that the jobs in space sector, they are highly skilled jobs. India needs highly skilled jobs to be generated. India, yes, it would need jobs like Swiggy, Zomato, or Ola, Uber, but it also needs jobs which are highly skilled, which are highly paying. Only if Indians are working in highly skilled jobs will you see the actual development of the country. That is required. Privatization is also required because the participation of or the share of India in the global space market, स्पेस का भी एक मार्केट है, उस स्पेस मार्केट में इंडिया का कंट्रीब्यूशन बस 3% है. And we have the potential to increase our market share in the overall space market. So if we want to increase our share, then we government alone will not be able to do it. We would want, or it is required, or it is desired that the private sector also contributes or chips in to improve or to increase the market share. And you can always put that comparative perspective that in USA, in Europe, so you have very well developed private ecosystem or space ecosystem where government and private sectors are participating equally or hand in hand, and they are able to develop some of the most you know cutting edge technology in space science and tech. So these are some of the arguments that you can give. And you can also mention that we have a huge talent pool, and that huge talent pool could be harnessed quite well by the private sector than by the government sector itself. So you can write these arguments in how or why privatization in space sector is desirable. Is this clear? So again, with respect to number of points, there remains some confusion. Some students, they think that if I write 2 3 powerful points, that would be sufficient. But you should read toppers copy. If you read toppers copy, you'll start seeing that toppers, they would focus on quality points also, but they would have good number of points overall also. So you have to strike a balance between quality of the points and the quantity of the points. So you should write at least 5 to 6 points when you're trying to justify something. So in this part, this is a kind of the core. So this part here, you should be writing some strong arguments, but you should be writing around 5 to 6 points. Now coming to the second part of this debate is the other side. So what can you mention about this? What is the concern? Okay, so Gaurav, you are saying that TCS taking over the passport seva, so there has been efficiency. So in IT and computers, yes, we can give some examples, but is it desirable in space sector that we allow private sector? So that argument, see, in private, when you say privatization in space sector is desirable, it is good that you give examples. If you give examples, you are enriching your answer. So for every justification, it is not necessary that you give example, but at least for 2 3 powerful points that you are writing, you can elaborate that by giving some examples. So examples would make your answer unique, and it would also show to the examiner that you have some depth of knowledge. So that is required. Or when you're saying you want to get an extra half marks or 1 marks more, these are some things that you should be doing more often in your answer, specifically in your body part. Now coming to your concerns or challenges of privatization, what do you think are the concerns or challenges of the privatization sector, or challenges or privatization of space sector? What could be the concern? कार्तिक, गौरव, क्या कंसर्न है प्राइवेटाइजेशन करने का स्पेस में स्पेसिफिकली? Why some school of thought they are opposing, and they are saying that uh, we should not go for privatization in space sector? Privatization in space only for non-strategic area of interest. Okay, that could be a conclusion, Gaurav, that you're trying to limit that yes, we should go for privatization, but even in privatization in the space sector, you are trying to segregate or bifurcate something as strategic and non-strategic. That can be done, but what are the concerns the of privatization? प्राइवेटाइजेशन करने से क्या कंसर्न है? जनरल क्या कंसर्न होते हैं? किसी भी पीएसयू को आप प्राइवेटाइज करना चाहते हो तो लोग क्या कंसर्न रेज करते हैं? SpaceX launches so many satellites in low Earth. Rush for space. Yes, very good. So you can say that it could lead to space debris. No, if you're sending so many types of your launch vehicles, so many types of satellites, you have become so efficient and so competitive. Eventually, what you're doing is leaving too much of space debris. Space debris itself becomes a challenge. Yes, what else? What about monopoly, or basically it can also monopology, monopoly? What if two three companies are only able to develop and they form a cartel and then they are dictating terms? So in that case, what is the solution? Satellite collision happens because of rush for space. Yes, so basically space debris. So space, rightly said Karthik, space is a global common, but you would see that some space company, they would become very very large, and then they would enjoy monopoly, and they wouldn't allow other smaller players to enter. So that would defeat the privatization concept itself. So if they form oligopoly, they form a nexus with the government or ISRO, and if they are not allowing smaller players to come up, this is defeating the purpose of privatization itself. Yes, what else do you think? ISRO, private companies will be driven by this. They would not focus, let us say, on socio-economic aspect of our society. So because the private companies are driven by profit, so again you would see that the benefits of space science and technology might not reach the common people. So this could further accentuate the divide between the rich and the poor, because these companies would be profit oriented only. So we might lose out the social social phenomena or social welfare philosophy of ISRO, that everything that ISRO is trying to do is in a way trying to help the Indian society. That objective or that vision or that purpose of our space program could be lost because of this. And then other concern with respect to privatization, that IPR issues would arise. IPR issues, intellectual property right issues, So in the new space policy, government is saying that ISRO will eventually become a organization which is oriented only towards research. All the technology part, the launching and sending, tracking, they would be dealt by, let us say, private arms or different agencies. ISRO will become typically a research organization. So even your, for technology part, the private companies will be filing patent. And do you think that if one company has filed a patent or they have developed a technology with the help of resources of ISRO or of government, and they file the patent, do you think they will be ready or willing to share the patent with other private companies or with ISRO itself? So they would use common resources. ISRO would share the resources, but the private companies, in return, there are less chances that they would reciprocate in the same manner. They might not show the magnanimity is that ISRO could be showing, or ISRO is showing, or the government is showing. Getting it? And obviously for national security purposes, so space science and technology is a strategic sector. So there are national security concerns with respect to space science and technology. And if private players are quite indulged in space science and technology of our country, it means that some of the sensitive information of our country, because they would have access to navigation system, GPS system, they would know where our security installations are, what is the movement of the troops. So these could be a potential threat for our country. So these informations could be leaked, could be hacked, or could be deliberately sold to other foreign elements or agents. So this can risk our national security itself. That is also a matter of grave concern. So what is the conclusion then? What is the conclusion? What can you write as a conclusion in such type of question? Yes, Karthik, Gaurav, and others, those who are listening. What can you write as a conclusion here? In the conclusion, what you can do, you can reduce or reduce some of the concerns of some of the people. Okay, or you can also go, if in this question you haven't mentioned about the new space policy, then you can mention about the new space policy, that government has come up with new space policy, distinguishing between the different distinguishing the roles of the different agencies or stakeholders in space sector, which is a step in the right direction. So that can be your conclusion. Or what you can do, you can overturn some of these issues, like uh, private companies might be profit oriented, but they would also bring benefit in the long run. So there could be initially monopoly or oligopoly, but later on, when these smaller players become very very efficient, they can break the monopoly of the companies also. So what would be required is greater degree of innovation. So with respect to space debris, if that there is a race for sending more and more missions, so we can set up a global committee, or UN can sit and watch that how many satellites a country should be launching, or overall how these space agencies should be regulating. Because it is a global common, we can come to a consensus that how many satellites we could be sending, each of the countries could be sending. So it is basically about more discussion and deliberation between the different space agencies, between the different leaders. So you can overturn some of the challenges, and that you can write as a conclusion, or you can write the government scheme itself as your conclusion. Is this okay? Okay, so what we'll do, we'll I'll just carry this question down. Okay, or so Gaurav is pointing out, let me just read out. Privatization should be allowed in a phased manner. Yes, that can also be a good way, that you can allow it in a phased manner. Government should regulate the strategic and heed to advice of related committees. See, uh, such a statement would become a very strong statement, that government should regulate the strategic and heed the advice. So you are going to become a part of the government itself. You are going to become a part of the bureaucracy. So any committee that is formed, it is it is expected that government should listen to it and take or make changes according to committee suggestion. But it is completely the will or the authority of the government, that whether it accepts it or whether it rejects it. So you shouldn't be using such strong word that government should heed the advice of the rated committees and space policies. You can at best say that government should not act as a player, but government should act as an umpire in space sector and should encourage the other private players, and it should always create an ecosystem where there is an openness for new innovations, for deliberations, for discussions, even with respect to policy matters. So in that way you can write a conclusion. Gaurav, getting it? Your point is valid. Your point is valid. It is just the tone of the language that you should take care of. Getting it? Okay, so let us look at this question. What do you understand by nanotechnology? So, what do you understand by nanotechnology? Elaborate the potential areas of its application in serving humanity in general and health sector in particular. So, let us see the structure of this question and then we'll see that what more can be done. So, in this question, what you have to do, let us first develop the structure, then we'll look at the detailed answer that you could have written. What do you understand by nanotechnology? Elaborate the potential areas of its application in serving humanity in general and health sector in particular. So what can be an introduction here? What can be an introduction? What should you be writing next? What is the subheading that you should be writing? So let us say if you begin with a definition of nanotechnology, so you just do not have to write only the definition, but this question is asking you about what do you understand by nanotechnology. It means you have to write something more than just a definition. You have to write the features also. Just a second. So you have to write something more about nanotechnology. So you could mention, let us say, features of nanotechnology or significance of nanotechnology. So you have to elaborate a little more about nanotechnology, and then you have to write the potential application in serving humanity in general. So applications, what you can do, you can divide first in health. So in health you can mention some of the application areas. So you can mention, let us say, in health also you can use a framework that how it can help in diagnosis, how it can help in treatment, how it can help in prevention. And then you can mention other areas like how it can help in material development, how it can help in, let us say, water purification, how it can help in electronics manufacturing. And then you can also mention, or in one part, that concerns of your nanotechnology or challenges of nanotechnology, or challenges for a country like India, and then you can write a conclusion. Are you able to get this? Are you able to understand the structure of the question? That here, because it is asking what do you understand by nanotechnology, you should be elaborating a little more about nanotechnology, not just definition but something more, maybe some of the features, or why there is a lot of interest in nanotechnology, why the properties starts to change at the nano scale. So that thing you can mention. And in applications you have to mention in the focus is like on general, and then in health sector in particular. So in application in you can begin with the health sector itself. In health also, this is a general framework that you can use. This is like, this first two are curative. When you go to a doctor will diagnose the disease that you have got, then he will give you or prescribe you the medicine. And prevention is the a tool, it is a preventive tool. It means that it avoids you to go to a doctor itself. So how it is helping in developing diagnostic tool, how it is helping in developing therapies, how it is helping in developing preventive tools also. So you can mention that, and then you can mention the other areas of application of nanotechnology. And it would be better that if you lace this part with a lot of examples. So the more the examples you use, the better it is, yes. But you should always take care of the word limit also. Yes, there should be some good points, validation points, but you should not breach the number of words, because if you breach the number of words in one question, and somewhere that will be compromising some other question itself. So for you, all 20 questions should be equal. So if you listen to toppers like rank 1 of 2016 or 17, so he would say that for him all the 20 questions are equal. So he would do justice to all the question. It means he will give equal time to all the questions. If there are 10 marker question, he'll give 7 minutes. If it is a 15 marker, let us say 9 minutes. So it doesn't matter whether he knows that question well or he doesn't know that question well. He will give equal time and weightage to each of the question. So now let us say what you could have written here. क्या लिख सकते थे इसमें? What do you understand by nanotechnology? So what I'll do, because we are running a little short, I'll just take this answer which I had written. So, what do you understand by nanotechnology? Elaborate the potential areas of its application in serving humanity in general and health sector in particular. So, in this question, I have began with Richard Feynman itself. Richard Feynman was the person who is the one who described what could be nanotechnology. So in his talks, he started describing that we can reach to the atomic scale or to the nano scale. So he said that scientists would be able to manipulate things at the nanoscale, at the atomic scale. So the science of nanotechnology began with his talk. So you can use Richard Feynman. Nanotechnology came into prominence after Richard Feynman gave a talk. There is plenty of space at the bottom. He described a process in which scientists would be able to manipulate individual atoms. However, scientists had no way to see individual atoms. With the invention of scanning tunneling microscope in 1981, scientists could see something at the atomic scale. And then you can, if there is space, then you can mention about Norio Taniguchi, and then you can mention what do you mean by nanoscale. So nanoscale means 1 to 100 nanometer. 1 nanometer is 10 to the power minus 9 meter. So this you can mention. And then you can also mention in very brief that the properties at this scale change very drastically because of the size, because of the increase in surface area, because of quantum effects. Quantum effects means that at the atomic scale, the laws of physics are quite different than the laws of physics at the bulk. If I just give you an example, so let us say Earth is revolving around Sun because of gravity. Earth is revolving around Sun because of gravity, but an electron is revolving around the nucleus not because of gravity but because of the electromagnetic attractive force. So inside the nucleus there is positive charge out and the electron is negatively charged, so they are getting attracted, or the electron is revolving because of the electromagnetic attraction. So the laws starts to change. So these are some of the quantum laws that starts to change. So in the second part, we have seen, or here you have written the general part first, and then we have written the health sector a little later. So what you can do, you can put the health sector at first also. So it is helping in diagnosis, so it can help in improving medical imaging and treatment. You can use certain examples like gold nanoparticles are being used to treat cancer. Graphene nanotubes is helping to repair spinal cord injuries, and some of the nanoparticles can scrape out the bad fats. It can be used as a scaffolding or a base for tissue regeneration. For prevention, if we can make more efficient vaccines because of this, it can improve the delivery mechanism of the drugs that we have. So these are the specific ones for your health sector, but this question also talks about the general sector also. So in water filtration you can use it because the size of the pore is very less. It can in fact stop your bacteria, virus, and fungi. So it can be used for desalination process. So we have taken some example like carbon nanotube, graphene. So this you might be aware about. Material development nowadays, you would be seeing sporting goods like your tennis rackets, bicycle frames, golf clubs. They are being made from this. Textiles like bulletproof textiles, flame retardant textiles, antibacterial textiles, they are being made using nanotechnology only. And it is being used in automotive sector or space sector or aerospace sector because of high weight to density ratio, lightweight or more weight to density ratio. So they have high strength but they have low weight, so it is used in that purpose, for those purposes in industrial coatings, particularly if you talk about coating of the turbine blades of windmills, because they are placed in, let us say, along the seaside. So the atmosphere is humid, so it corrodes the wind turbine, the blades of the wind turbine, so that can be reduced by industrial coatings. It can act as a catalyst because it has high surface area. It can replace carbon this silicon based electronics. So time is less, so I would have explained you how it can replace. Well, you can study that how carbon nanotubes are a competitor, or they are a good candidate to replace your silicon based electronics. So you can mention about nano inks also. So these are some of the general areas, and then there are specific health related areas that you could have mentioned. So that is all for today. If you have any doubt, you can ask, or we'll close the session. Yes, any doubts? So if there are no doubts, let us close the session, and good luck for your exams. Let us see if we get time, we could come up with more such